You're listening to the SweetLife Entrepreneur Podcast. Simplified strategies to grow your service business and launch a life you love faster. With business mentor and entrepreneur activator, April Beach.
Okay, I am all ready.
I always get on here and I look at myself and I'm going, oh my gosh, it's like late in the day. I look like that. It's terrible. Hi.
Okay. How are you?
I'm well,
so I'm just
thank
gonna
you.
put my phone off so that it doesn't happen. Yes, hi, I'm good.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for getting back to me, and I'm really glad. Normally don't stalk people on Instagram, but I saw your post and it was really compelling. And so I was like, okay, I really have to connect with this lady. And originally, I think, I'm trying to remember back. I think the first reason why I wanted to connect was I'm very, very interested in flow state when it comes to entrepreneurship. And it's something that, it's something that I've been researching a lot more. And my husband and I, he does a lot of that in his business. And so that was the original reason I reached out to you. But then you told me about your project you're working on. And so I'd love to talk to you about that.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to talk about all of it.
Okay.
Do you and your husband work together? Are you in the same business? Are you running similar things but different, or?
Correct. Okay. So before we go on, I am recording and I usually show the video of recording, which is kind of behind the scenes, on my Facebook page. So are you okay?
That's totally fine.
Okay. All right. So we do. So between the two of us, we own 4 companies. And so I'm a business development strategist and coach, and I have 2 different businesses in that space. One, which is very, very niche. I'm the creator of the parent coaching, the maternity concierge industry. And cool. Yeah. And so I have a business that operates in that, and we develop maternity concierge programs for independent practitioners all the way through OBGYNs and HR organizations and hospitals. And then I have the SweetLife company, which is more like what we're doing. It's independent entrepreneurs, and it's really life first entrepreneurship, strategically designed around family. And then my husband is very, very similar. His company develops other businesses. So it's similar to like a sports venture capital, but so much more than that. They develop products and ideas from people within the adventure sports space.
Wow.
So, and that it goes really well. Like my background is action adventure sports, and they develop things in action adventure sports. So, if you get into any of that, everything that we do kind of in this space is around flow state and mindset. Even though we're developing a physical product or we're developing a program, that's just how we operate as entrepreneurs. So it's just super interesting. So we do work together. If you consider, like, we have a mastermind, just the 2 of us. It's our family mastermind. We have 3 kids. So we have our family mastermind, and then we do a lot of business training and personal development together, but then we have our own companies.
Yeah. It's an interesting balance, isn't it? To work out how to be in your strengths, work together, and also work out where things are going to go well.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
What about you guys? Okay. So you came over here from Australia, right? So tell me your story a bit, and then we'll kind of get into the podcast and decide what we want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we originally from Sydney, Australia, and we've been running, it's kind of been more of a consulting business. So we go into a corporate. We also had online programs. So my husband does like productivity. He's very, very good at teaching people how to speak and sell on stage. And my background is kind of the neuroscience. So I did a lot of training and taught resilience and change management and that sort of stuff. And then probably in the last few years, a lot of our programs moved from live delivery to online. And we just thought, we've been thinking about moving to the States for a while and giving it a go in this market. And we're just like, we're ready, give it a go. And then our new venture now with Resilient Little Hearts has been something that I've been thinking about for a few years. And for a lot of different reasons, feel very passionate about it. And so it's really a continuation of our work, but we work together-ish. So we're both mentally in each other's companies. And we run a mastermind together for like coaches and speakers and stuff, but primarily I'm heading up Resilient Little Hearts on that side, and Colin's going more into his delivery of speaking on stage and helping people with that.
So cool. So we could create this podcast episode around so many different things. We could talk about working together. We could talk about, even like logistics of family and planning and how we do that, and how, we're on separate paths, but without being, kind of crossing, basically like butting heads with each other. There's so many things. So what do you want to chat about? I really like Resilient Little Hearts. So the majority of our listeners are online entrepreneurs, coaches, service-based entrepreneurs who are women, who are also raising children. So the majority of our listeners already have kids, and they are looking to really redesign their life and find that time freedom through launching an online business. But the foundation of what they're doing, the purpose of what they're doing, usually always comes back to the people that they're responsible for growing into, confident and thought leaders and influencers in the future. And so I love talking about kid stuff. So it's up to you. We can have you back multiple times if you like it and you have fun. I know you're doing, did you say you're doing like a Kickstarter campaign for that?
Yes, we're going live next week with our book. Yeah, I've actually done other podcasts in the entrepreneurial space. I do really love talking about it, because I think entrepreneurs get the whole concept that it's not just about how you achieve in school, that determines how you're going to go forward in life. And exactly what you said, that whole mindset and value-based and developing character in our children. And also doing that while we're navigating complex lives is something interesting.
It is a complex life.
Yes.
Okay, so the way we usually lay out the podcast is by some sort of a training or covering like 3 points or 5 points. How would you like to do that today? Or do you just want to talk about the book and then maybe just talk about some tips or strategies for communicating entrepreneurship with kids? Or do you just want to talk about the book? I mean, I am totally open. It's whatever you feel is best. You don't have to cross it over into entrepreneurship if you don't want. Sure. Every once in a while I'll do an episode like that, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. No, I'm easy. Like I'm happy, very happy not just to talk about the book the whole time. Like I'd love to do something that would add value to your community. Okay, so let's so the flow usually goes, I'll introduce you. I'll come back and pre-record your intro later because I'm not exactly sure where it fits. Well, actually, I can tell you right now, I had it slotted for a time around your Kickstarter, I think. So I think I have it. Let me find it here. I think we have it for July 2nd. Awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, happy to do it. I think that's so great. So I'm happy to do that. So I'll give you a chance and just kind of share a little bit about your background and your area of expertise. I think that's so important for our listeners to know. And then talk about your book and why you wrote it and a little bit about the book. And then maybe we could get into a few different strategies for entrepreneurs who have children in ways that you can communicate. Like you said, navigating complex lives is such a big deal because it is a complex life. And sometimes it's really scary. I know, I just wrote an article for a publication on just how to prepare your family for entrepreneurship. And I don't have the psychological expertise that you do. It was just really about strategy and family planning and management. But understanding really what's going on so many layers deeper than that is absolutely, I think, incredibly important. So that's good. So how does that sound?
Awesome. Sounds great. Okay. I'm in.
Okay. So we're going to try to go for 30 minutes. Okay. We'll see how we can do. Sometimes interviews go 35, 40. I have a feeling I'm going to be really interested in what you say, but we really should have a hard stop of around 40. And so that so that our listeners should still stay engaged.
Oh, totally.
Okay. And then one other thing I just started doing, well, it's been about 2 months now, but we do live on Skype with our guests for that week, where you could join me live on Skype. And I usually do that on Wednesday evenings. And so we just talk about your book, talk about the episode the week that your episode comes out.
Cool.
It's so much fun. Sometimes technology totally breaks. Like this past week.
I know.
I'm like, why? It doesn't matter with you. But so like the past week, my guest couldn't join just because she just couldn't join. She was in Australia, so I don't know if that was part of it. But so your week, if we publish on the 2nd, so Wednesday's 4th of July here, and nobody's going to be doing anything. So maybe we can get on live on Thursday the 5th or something like that.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Okay, cool. And then Joyce, my assistant, will just kind of send more information on that for you. Okay.
No problems.
Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I am here with Sarah Boyd, and I have to admit that the reason why Sarah is here is because I totally stalked her on Instagram. I usually don't do this with our podcast guests, but she was very compelling, and I forgot how I came across you, Sarah. But there were some things that you posted that were absolutely directly to my heart. And so I knew that I wanted to have you on the show, and I'm so excited to introduce you to the SweetLife Entrepreneur listeners. So welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us about you? Yeah. Thank you for being here and not thinking I'm some crazy chick just till I stop.
I don't think you're crazy at all. I think it's just a normal part of Instagram, isn't it? You just on it and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know how I'm on this person's profile, but they look cool and I like to get to know them, and it's the joys of Instagram.
That was pretty much exactly it. It was like, I'm not really sure who this woman is, but I really feel like I need her in my business life now. And I want to know more about what she's doing. And so welcome to the show. So why don't you just take some time and just tell our listeners who you are and what you do, and a little bit about some of the upcoming projects that you have going on.
Sure. So I'm Sarah. So my background for the past 10 years or so, my background is in psychology and neuroscience. That's all of my study at university. I did a master's in educational psychology, a diploma in the neuroscience of leadership. And so for the past 10 years, my husband and I have been running kind of a consulting, also digital business where we would go into corporates and teach entrepreneurs positive psychology principles. And so my background really was teaching concepts of resilience, which is a term that sometimes people don't know what it is. They're like, oh, I've kind of heard that, or I'm not sure. But it's basically a concept in psychology that talks about when an individual goes through a challenging or hard time, their capacity to bounce back from that and use it to propel them into their next season. And so I was teaching that in corporate. And things were going pretty well, but when I was in my late 20s, I got one of those phone calls that you never expect that you're going to get. And my doctor called me and said that I had results back from a biopsy he'd sent me to have. And basically I got diagnosed with cancer. And so here I was in my late 20s thinking that I knew how my life was going to roll out and thinking that I was doing all the right things. And I was now dealing with this cancer diagnosis and treatment. And really that threw me into a quarter life crisis and caused me to really question what I was doing with my life. And even though what I was doing was good, and it was kind of on track with what was really what I wanted to do, there were so many areas that I knew I wasn't showing up enough, and I wasn't being brave with my daily decisions. I was really confined by other people's opinions and paralyzed. And so that was really a wake-up call for me. And I think straight after I got diagnosed with cancer, we then, and we were allowed after the treatment. The good news is that I'm all good. The doctors were able to treat me, and that's amazing.
Yeah. That's
yeah. And so then we had our 2 children. I've got a little boy, Jonah, who's 5, and a girl, sassy little girl, who's 3, Georgia. And I think it was the combination of my cancer diagnosis and becoming a mother that just really caused me to realize how important teaching our children values and teaching them the mindset for success in life. I think it was the confrontation with my mortality in the cancer diagnosis that made me realize that when you get to the end of your life, you really don't care how much money you made. You care if you showed up. You care, did I give it a go? You care, did I live out my whole potential? But you don't care about the accolades. You don't care about the money. And I realized that that's what I wanted for my children, that I wanted to pass on these principles. And so that's where our whole new venture was born from. And we've now just recently started Resilient Little Hearts as a children's publishing house. And we're ready to release our first children's book. And the cool thing about this is actually it's about producing books that have meaningful messages. So our first book is actually about teaching children about courage. So what courage is, what it feels like, and actually demystifying that stuff so that you can use a repetitious activity that you do every day to teach your children and have meaningful conversations with them. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow. Teaching, you said something in here, and those of you guys who watch our behind the scenes on the video, you can see I take like all these crazy notes when we're going through and I have guests on the show. You said something that really hit home for me, and that is being brave in your daily decisions. And that, I think there's so many entrepreneurs that there are so many places where we aren't being brave in those daily decisions. Like you said, you were doing good things, but there were so many areas where you weren't showing up the way that you wanted to. And that just personally really hit home to me immediately. I think, okay, where am I not being brave in daily decisions? What am I doing that I should be doing, or holding promises to myself better at? Yeah. So I think that's so powerful that you said that. So now you're here in the US. So your whole family has come here from Australia. So tell us about, first of all, really quick, what is it like to move all the way across the ocean with two entrepreneurs? You guys are clearly designing your life the way that you want it to be. You have two little kids. What has that journey been like for you getting over here?
Yeah, it's been amazing and stretching and complex and good all at the same time. I think it's just the move has been similar to any type of startup or any time of really busy time in our business. It's good things have happened and it's been stretching at the same time. And what I love about your community and what you've shared about it is that your community is full of people who really have family as an intentional part of what they do. And so it was really, really important to us with the move to help our children with the transition. We purposely decided to do it before they started school, so that, in the hopes that it would help them with the transition. But we've been really, really blessed, and we've had help, and which, is not underrated in any sense of the word. But it's gone really, really well. And it's one of the best decisions that we've made.
And how have your kids handled this? How have you helped your kids handle this transition? And I would love to know two different things. I would love to know how your kids, they're so young, and so I don't know if that makes it easier or harder, to be honest, or the same, just different. And then I would also love to know how you communicate entrepreneurship and the unpredictability of developing new companies to children. Yeah.
That's a really good question. So for me, my children are 3 and 5. My 3-year-old, I agree, she's too young to really understand what's happening. So as long as we're all together, she's kind of just along for the ride. My 5-year-old, even though he's 5, he's a very deep processor and understands things a little bit more than I even understand sometimes. And so I was very intentional with how we did our move. And so I actually packed up our house somewhat secretly and emptied out cupboards and things like that so that his time to process was shorter. Because an international move for us, it was really 3 months of preparation, but we told them when there was certainty. So when our visas got approved, when we were 1 month out, when I had real certainty with what was happening, that's when we told him and our kids. The other thing that I do with every transition with my children is I got books that talk about what it's going to be like. We looked up, pictures and photos of where we were going. The whole thing is like in such an uncertain situation, I tried to find where can I create as much certainty as possible. And so down to, and I think it depends on your own children, and I've had other friends do a similar move, and they said it was all about creating fun experiences for their children. For me, as much as, every kid loves a fun experience, my child he really needed that certainty. And so that was something that really helped us with the move. In terms of teaching kids entrepreneurship and those kinds of principles, I think it's all about what's really behind entrepreneurship, which is the belief that in taking a risk and having the courage to give something a go, that my life's going to expand and be better because of it. And I think that when we have those conversations with our children, one of the things that we're passionate about is teaching courage and bravery to our children. And so just on a practical level, again, our children are only 5 and 3, but we don't just reward behavior like good manners or the homework's done or whatever. We actually reward brave behavior. So last Christmas, my son was doing his Christmas production, which is awesome. I love that stuff. And he had volunteered to be the nativity star in the nativity play. And I could tell when he got out on stage, he really hadn't anticipated that there were going to be so many people in the audience. But he did it anyway, even though he was terrified. And so when he got home, when we got to see him afterwards, I just sort of said to him, I'm so proud of you because you were brave, you were scared and you did it anyway. And, the reward that we gave him was a sticker on his sticker chart. If you've got older children, any type of reward that you would normally give to them. But those types of things can really help us teach the values that we want. I think sometimes we reward like sticking by the rules and being well behaved and doing all that kind of stuff. But if we're wanting to cultivate this positive mindset, this ability to bounce back from failure, this ability to have courage, then we have to be intentional about that, because our society is not wired like that. And many of us are having these revelations as adults, like, oh, wow, like it's so important that I move past my comfort zone and, have the right mindset to set me up for success. But our current society is not wired that way at the moment.
Wow. Okay. I want to share something with you that is so interesting. So my youngest son has really, really severe food allergies, and we have always given him these rewards for being brave. And one of the things that he learned at a very young age is, if you're not, being brave requires doing something even though you're still scared. And I, as an entrepreneur, have learned so much from him and watching how he prepares for things like food challenges and things that are very, very scary, doing things that are, such bigger risks than I would ever take. Eating something that, possibly could kill you. And it's almost done that before, multiple times. And just watching him go through the process of kind of preparing for these events, and then how he carries his faith with him through that, even though he doesn't know, what it's going to look like. But I love that you said that, because I think that, knowing that we're going to do something. I'm such a crybaby. I always cry on a podcast. Brittany, my editor will probably clip this out and edit it. But I'm such a, especially when it comes to him, because I walk through this with him.
You know it. You know the pain.
Yeah. But this is what people get to see behind the scenes, because it doesn't get edited. So they either really like me or they really think I'm totally an emotional freak. But watching him process psychologically for going through those things, and then doing things even though there's, he's scared of it anyway, and then rewarding that bravery is a big part of our system that we do. And so I love that you said that, because I think that, even for our children, we're kind of totally outside of the box. I'm honestly don't put a very high value on good grades and things like that. I put a high value on my kids thinking creatively and designing and developing things and taking chances. And so I love that you said that, because a lot of the time, I reward things that I feel maybe I shouldn't be as a parent because it's not the way we're supposed to parent, or it's not the way we're supposed to do things, or it's not the things that we're supposed to put value on. But when you are part of an entrepreneur family, those are really big things, and taking risks and stepping out and also claiming things that are going to be amazing for you. So we also allow we do a family dream board. So anytime we're about to do a big project, or before my husband launched his most recent company, it was going to be a big deal and family dynamics were going to change. And so we did a family dream board, and it wasn't like Pinterest worthy. It was a board that we push pinned to the wall in the dining room, and all my boys went on there, and they were coloring pictures of things like, when we as a family invest in this and do this, and even though it might be scary, even though this might be a risk, these are our rewards for, our bravery, and really kind of cool, that family sacrifice. So I love that you said that, because to be really honest, I thought that was totally not the right thing to do as a parent. And so I'm going, okay, so you're super qualified, and we're, I would have done it anyway for the food allergy challenges. But when I think about other things in entrepreneurship, we let our kids pick. We say, okay, when we hit these benchmarks for selling this much for our latest online program, then we're doing this. What do you guys want to do? And we let our kids but my kids are older. My kids are 16, 13, and 11 now. But even when they were little, we did these things for them too. So I appreciate not feeling like I have a total parent fail here on this podcast.
Not at all. And I think it's amazing what you've been doing with your family, because, our entire schooling system is set up to create an amazing employee. And if you feel called to be, work in corporate, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, then I think that it's a great way to train to do that. But if you want to do anything out of the box, if you want to do anything creatively, if you want to do anything in the entrepreneur space, it's not there to set you up for success. It's created for a different model. And so I think the beauty of being an entrepreneur as a parent is that you expose your child to the possibilities of what they could be in their life. And it's not just this linear idea of you have to go and you've got two things to choose from, but you're teaching them these amazing things. And by exposing them to your journey, you're actually giving them the capacity to dream themselves. It's so cool.
Yeah, that is cool. It is cool. Yes. We're doing this. Yay, us. We're doing
That's
this.
Right. I think as parents, we are our biggest critics sometimes, and we just need to pat ourselves on the back, because, how many other people do, how cool is it that your kids have parents that care enough to involve them in the rewards of their business, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I think that it's all of us. I mean, when they were little, it was okay, you're going to play with Legos while I'm on this call, right? You have a job too. This is your job. This is the way you are involved in this business. This is the way you help. Now it's please make sure all the weeds are pulled and the lawn is mowed, because we're going to a social media, weekend away, social media training, but everybody pitches in. It's a family business. And even though it doesn't look like old school family business, like working on the farm, or when I was little, we had surf shops. And so I worked in my parents' surf shops, renting out surfboards to the tourists, even though it's totally different. I did that when I was 7, even though it's totally different. It's still the same. It is still for those of us who are in this space, who are strategically designing, businesses around family life. So love that you said that. So this book, this publishing house that you're developing, tell us a little bit more about the future of Resilient Little Hearts and how people can find you and some really exciting upcoming things. I know you guys have a Kickstarter going out. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so we do. We're going live with our first book. It's called The Boy Who Stood Up Tall, and it's about a little boy with a sensitive soul who learns to stand up to his fears and what kind of happens. And in the back of every one of our books, we have a note for the parents section as well, which explains the background psychology of what we're actually teaching the child on a metaphor level. So yeah, we're going live on Kickstarter. I think by the time this episode's live, we'll already be live and ready to go. And so in terms of the future of our company, we already have multiple other books lined up that I've personally written on teaching growth mindset, teaching trusting your intuition, teaching how to deal with, perfectionistic thinking and a different way to think about it. And then our long-term goal is to be a publisher for other authors as well, to basically be a place to put books in parents' hands that they know will have meaningful conversations around the themes of resilience, courage, and kindness, around things that we know are really what's most important, and what children really need the most.
Wow. And, from what I understand and from what I can't say I've been looking for this, but I don't think that there are a lot of people that are sharing this type of information with children. I don't think these conversations are happening. Do you see that, or are you just doing it differently, or are they just not happening?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there is a lot of people in the psychology field that are starting to put their hands up and say we need to be having these conversations with children. But there are not many people who, like, in the way that we are doing it, in the sense of we're doing it through story and through books. I don't know of many other people who, there might be one book here or one book there that are really helpful, but to create a collection and create kind of a huge resource for parents, it's not out there at the moment. And that's why, I'm really passionate about not only empowering children, but empowering parents with the resources they need.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah. So how can people find your publishing house, Resilient Little Hearts?
Yeah, so it's hard to spell. I've realized this since but it's, if you go to any of our domains, so resilientlittle.hearts.com, you can find us on Instagram or also on Facebook. If you go to Resilient Little Hearts /book, it will redirect you to our Kickstarter. So yeah, we're really excited.
I'm really excited for you. And of course, we'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes as well for this episode. So if you guys are driving your car or at the beach or wherever you are this summer, and you can't write that down right now, you guys can come back to the show notes, of course, and get that information. Okay, so Sarah, before we go, can you just share with us maybe one or two really simple strategies? So if there's an entrepreneur who's listening, mm-hmm. and she is either in the place where she's ready to launch her business, or she's launched her business and maybe she's thinking, oh man, my kids aren't doing really well, or I didn't communicate this the way that maybe I should have. In hindsight, I could have done this differently. What are some tips that you can give to her so that she can take them right away and start helping her children feel more comfortable about their new state and their new lifestyle?
That's an awesome question. So I think, first of all, no matter what mistakes we make as parents, everything's always restorable, as long as we're taking responsibility and moving along with the journey. I think for children, communicating certainty and communicating boundaries are really, really important. Children look for predictability. They look for signs that mum and dad are okay. And so I think probably the biggest thing, when I say boundaries, it's not about protecting them from what's going on in the business, because I think, at an age-appropriate way, it's actually good for them to see that sometimes we're having problems and we're overcoming them and that sort of stuff. But I think where we need to take a look is how we are carrying the stress, if we're really not okay, we really need to ask the question, is sharing that with our children benefiting them, or is it actually harming them? And a lot of the time we're very unaware, and I've had this multiple times. Like I said, my husband and I are in business together. We've had multiple times where it's been an incredibly busy time, and I've just found our children's behavior has just gone down the drain, and it would just make me more and more frustrated, and I don't understand why it's such a stressful time in our business. You guys can't, just be nice and stop fighting with your sister and all that kind of thing. But, when I've actually sat down and had a conversation, and, it's easier as they get older, and said, like, hey, what's going on for you? To actually hear, oh, we don't see you, and see what the actual issue is, because sometimes we think the issue is something and it's not the actual issue. So for me, at times I've thought it's just because we're stressed, but my son will say, I haven't seen you that much this week. He really craves quality time. Or, my daughter, she loves fun and dancing around and doing that sort of stuff. Well, when I get stressed, I go in, I forget to play. And so I think, first of all, having the boundaries in and of yourself to know what is beneficial to share and what is not, having predictability at some points, and however that looks for your family. For some people, it looks like we have dinner together every night. For some people, it looks like we go to the playground in the afternoon. Like, it's not about creating rules. It's just about creating some kind of rhythm. And then the third thing is just about communicating openly with your children. And we make huge assumptions as parents, I think too, because we know our children, and we think when they're reacting a certain way, we assume that it's because of X, Y, and Z. But sometimes it has nothing to do with us, and other times it has to do with things that we don't even put our finger on. So just having those open conversations can really help.
Wow, thank you so much. I've learned so much talking to you. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you connected back with me, and I'm so glad that you're on the show. And
thank you so much for having me. This has been a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, and I can't wait to stay connected with you. I'd love to have you connect with our podcast community as well, and I'll make sure that everybody knows how to find you and how to find the publishing house and how to find the first book, The Boy Who Stood Up Tall. I'm so excited for that book. I'm so excited for my son to get his hands on that book, and although, it's probably, he's 11 now, so he's probably older than I would imagine. But I think this will really speak to his heart, because he's actually trying to move into that place of leadership of younger kids that are feeling afraid to walk through those struggles. And so this is a great resource for him to know about too, so that he can pass it along to other little dudes. So we really appreciate knowing you as our family, and thank you so much for being on the show. And for you guys, you will have all of the show notes and how to find Sarah and everything that her family is up to at the website, of course.